Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're undertaking a really fascinating, completely impartial deconstruction of a highly charged narrative. We are going to explain historical accusations against specific groups and specifically look at how a piece of source material actively revised these ancient conspiracies to make a very sharp, very modern political point. Now, to be clear right up front, our goal here is absolutely not to validate or debunk these claims. We are simply mapping out exactly how the source constructs its argument, step by step. So, if you're interested in the architecture of modern media narratives and how history gets weaponized, you're definitely in the right place.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to hit 4 main points. First, the core historical accusation. Second, a timeline of claims. Third, connecting past to present. And finally, the critique of sectarianism. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The core historical accusation. The historical premise. Okay, to really navigate this narrative, we first need to decode the specific, highly charged terminology the speaker uses. Throughout the source, they repeatedly use the coded term al-Abaid to describe the accused group. Interestingly, this term is deployed right after they discuss historical tropes about Jewish populations. Now, the source claims this group conducts something called the Holy Banquet, and according to the speaker, this is a dark ritual that involves extracting human blood and allegedly mixing it into bread or wine. The claim here is that the perpetrators genuinely believe this ritual grants them physical strength and power from a so-called deity of light.
Now, the source uses incredibly gruesome, highly specific details to build this terrifying narrative. The speaker claims that old European murals, statues, and historical investigations literally document these exact methods. They list off horrific practices, like hanging victims vertically to drain blood from the lower body or inverted from the neck. They even describe something called the needle barrel, which is exactly what it sounds like, rolling victims in a barrel lined with sharp spikes. As analysts, we have to note how the source relies heavily on this visceral, deeply horrifying imagery. It's designed to completely shock the audience and establish a foundation of pure malice for the accused group.
Moving on to Section 2. A timeline of claims. Centuries of evidence.
The source relies massively on dates and specific names, and that's done to create this sense of undeniable historical weight. Looking at the earliest European cases the speaker aggressively cites, we start all the way back in 1144 with the case of William of Norwich in England. That's followed by Harold of Gloucester in 1168 and Little St. Hugh of Lincoln in 1255. The speaker makes a point to note that in many of these instances, the locations where the victims were found were actually turned into holy shrines. This timeline is used to assert a centuries-long, deeply entrenched pattern of alleged ritualistic crimes across Europe.
And the speaker definitely doesn't stop with England. They essentially overwhelm the audience with geographic and chronological data points. We're talking about the 1455 case of a toddler named Simon in Italy, a teenager named Werner in Germany in 1287, and then they pull cases stretching all the way into the late 19th and early 20th centuries, like Esther in Hungary and Andrei in Russia. The source describes these incredibly lengthy trials, claims of political bribery to free the accused, and massive public outrage when the accused were acquitted. It's a dense, complex web of historical claims, all engineered to make this conspiracy feel ubiquitous, like it's a globally recognized phenomenon.
So, what's the ultimate point of bringing up all this history? The crucial takeaway is how the source leverages these specific incidents to explain massive geopolitical actions. They assert that it was precisely because of these alleged ritualistic crimes that King Edward I issued his 1290 decree, which expelled this population from England entirely. The narrative brilliantly, if cynically, uses real state-sponsored expulsions as ultimate proof of the group's guilt.
Section 3. Connecting past to present. Bridging the gap.
Now, how does the source bridge the geographic gap from medieval Europe to the Middle East? They introduce an 1891 book by a Christian author named Faris Effendi Habib. The source argues that these exact same alleged practices were happening frequently in the Arab world too, but unlike in Europe where they were immortalized in art and church records, the speaker claims they were actively suppressed in the Middle East. Why? Well, they point the finger at strict, nationalistic military regimes in the region, claiming they purposely covered up these incidents, keeping the local populations totally blind to the threat in their own backyard.
This brings us to what is essentially the emotional climax of the source's argument. The speaker strategically pivots, leveraging raw, devastating modern tragedies. They recount the horrific, widely reported death of a young girl named Hind in Gaza, who was tragically killed while waiting for rescue. They also describe in agonizing detail the death of Mohammed Salah, a boy with special needs who was mauled by a military dog. The source uses these visceral, heartbreaking events to draw a direct, unbroken line back to that ancient conspiracy we just discussed. The speaker's argument? These aren't modern acts of war. They're the exact same bloodthirsty ritualistic behaviors of the Allah Abid continuing uninterrupted right into the present day.
Section 4. The critique of sectarianism, the ultimate motive. Here is where the core argument of the whole piece becomes crystal clear. The speaker asserts that internal sectarian divisions are completely blinding Muslims to their true historical adversary. According to the source, when this accused group looks at a victim, they make absolutely zero distinction between a Sunni child and a Shia child. The speaker essentially argues that it's pure intellectual naivete for one sect to think they are somehow safe while the other is being targeted.
But it goes deeper than just equal opportunity targeting. The source claims this enemy actively weaponizes those sectarian divides. They assert that members of this group infiltrate societies, speaking perfect Arabic, even reciting the Quran flawlessly. The speaker claims they pose as Muslims, specifically to incite civil violence, literally cursing revered Sunni figures while pretending to be Shia, and vice versa. They point to historical spies, like Eli Cohen in Syria, to back this up, and even claim there are secret Israeli drone bases in the Iraqi desert operating totally under the radar. The central argument here is that the enemy thrives by keeping the region perpetually divided, fighting itself from the inside.
Section 5. The ultimate warning. Ending the divide.
The speaker concludes by turning the lens entirely on the audience, directly shaming them. They argue, and I quote, "We are the only nation that regurgitates the past to end its future." The speaker expresses just utter frustration that modern societies are still bickering over unverified historical and sectarian conflicts from 14 centuries ago. By letting yourselves be distracted by these ancient internal disputes, the speaker argues, you are allowing modern atrocities against your own women and children to continue completely unchecked by a unified front.
So, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on. How does reviving these deeply historical, and let's face it, deeply fraught accusations shape our understanding of modern geopolitical conflicts? What we've looked at today is an absolute masterclass in narrative construction, taking historical tropes, fusing them with genuine raw modern pain, and aiming them like a laser at a specific political and social goal. As focused learners, understanding exactly how these arguments are built is absolutely crucial to navigating the flood of information we consume every single day. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.